They thought it would be a massacre, but not in the way they imagined. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the helm of the UNSS Vanguard, the sole warship dispatched by Earth to intercept an alien armada hurtling toward human-controlled space. The air on the bridge was still, heavy with anticipation, yet not a single officer wavered in focus. Every crew member moved like clockwork, each action deliberate, each decision exact. For most, facing an armada of alien warships would spark panic. On the Vanguard, it sparked resolve. Marcus had been through more battles than he could count, skirmishes on Mars, tense standoffs near Jupiter's moons, and brutal engagements along the asteroid colonies. His face bore the creases of experience, his eyes steady with calculation. He was the kind of man who didn't rattle. He couldn't afford to. "All systems green, Captain," reported Lieutenant Ramirez, his voice calm, almost routine. The Vanguard had been on standby for 2 hours, watching distant pings of the incoming fleet grow closer on their tactical display. There was no confusion about the mission. Hold the line. The enemy, Zorak, a reptilian species with a rigid hierarchical society, military dominance hard-coded into their culture. Their mistake wasn't attacking Earth. It was assuming Earth hadn't seen this coming. The Zorak had misread silence for fear. In truth, humanity had been watching, waiting, preparing. For decades, Earth's defense agencies had pooled resources, analyzed alien patterns, built contingency strategies. The result of all that effort now floated in the vacuum of space, cloaked in reinforced alloy plating and powered by reactors humming with enough energy to vaporize continents. The UNSS Vanguard. "Display their formation," Marcus ordered. The center of the bridge lit up with a swirling 3D hologram. Ships, dozens of them, sleek angular designs, typical Zorak aesthetics, efficient, deadly. Their ships radiated menace, but Marcus didn't blink. He leaned closer. "Admiral Krath," he muttered, reading the incoming transmission ID. He'd heard of him, a brutal strategist with a reputation for ending negotiations with laser fire. "Open a channel," Hale said. The communications officer, Ensign Blake, gave a nod. "You're live, Captain." Marcus cleared his throat. "Attention, Zorak Fleet. This is Captain Marcus Hale of the UNSS Vanguard. You are entering human territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Seconds passed. Then came the reply, sharp and disdainful. "This is Admiral Krath of the Zorak Imperium. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now and your lives will be spared." Marcus almost chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was so expected. "Admiral Krath," he said, letting a smile crease his face, "you seem to think we're surprised. Let me disabuse you of that notion." He stepped forward. "This ship, this crew, this technology, we're not here by accident. You want Earth? You'll have to go through us. Consider this your only warning." The channel cut off. No further words, just action. "All hands, battle stations," Marcus barked. The crew didn't panic. They moved. Fast, trained, efficient. As red warning lights pulsed throughout the ship, the bridge took on the feel of a storm, tense but controlled. "Enemy fleet is advancing," Ramirez said. "Weapons charged." The Zorak didn't hesitate. Their ships surged forward, plasma blasts streaking through the void like jagged bolts of rage. It was the kind of overwhelming assault designed to flatten enemies through sheer volume. But the Vanguard wasn't built to be flattened. Argus, the ship's onboard artificial intelligence, processed hundreds of trajectories per second. The defense grid adjusted, distributing energy across shielding sectors, rotating the hull with microscopic precision, making each incoming shot just a little bit less lethal. "Return fire," Marcus commanded. The railguns thundered. Projectiles moved faster than the eye could track. Chunks of metal accelerated to relativistic speeds. The Zorak were fast. The Vanguard was faster. Torpedoes followed, guided, heat-seeking, AI-assisted. They weren't just missiles. They were homing warnings carved in fire. Marcus pointed toward the largest ship on the display. "Target their flagship," he said. "We're sending a message." The torpedoes locked on. The enemy flagship pivoted, trying to dodge. But it was too late. A second later, its hull was ripped open. Shock waves of fire and pressure blasted out in slow, graceful arcs. Energy shields flickered and died. Explosions danced across its surface like a funeral pyre in orbit. "Direct hit," Ramirez shouted. "Flagship is down." Cheers erupted, but Marcus didn't join them. Not yet. His eyes stayed on the battle map, watching how the rest of the Zorak fleet reacted. Some ships faltered, hesitated. Others pressed forward, spurred on by vengeance. But the formation was breaking, cracks forming in their once perfect lines. "Don't let them regroup," he said. "Press the advantage." The bridge came alive with commands, adjustments, energy transfers. Argus rerouted power, optimized weapon firing solutions, and modified shield harmonics in real time. The ship itself seemed to breathe, responding with the instinct of something almost alive. Zorak vessels continued to fall. Some exploded outright. Others spiraled into uncontrolled drift. The Vanguard systems held firm, absorbing hit after hit. The hull shuddered, but never broke. The bridge shook, but never faltered. On the Zorak command ship, Admiral Krath watched with horror. How is this possible?" he whispered. "They are but one ship." And that was the point. That was what none of them ever understood. "They always think numbers are everything," Marcus muttered, his voice low but resolute. "They never learn." The battle was drawing to a close. Fire burned where ships once stood proud. The Zorak's confidence had collapsed into chaos. Their numerical advantage had crumbled against something they couldn't quantify: human defiance. "Status report," Hale called. Ramirez scanned the readouts. "Minimal damage to core systems. Casualties are light." Hale nodded. Finally, he allowed himself to feel it. Pride. "Good work," he said. "Prepare to send a message to Earth. Let them know one ship was enough." Silence returned to the bridge. Not a peaceful silence, a silence of aftermath. The kind that carried the weight of what had just been done and the burden of what might still come. Then a voice broke through. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth," Blake announced. "On screen." The holographic image of Admiral Preston flickered into view, a seasoned face lined with both wisdom and stress. "Congratulations, Captain Hale," Preston said. "Your success has been noted, but there's more. Intelligence confirms that the fleet you just destroyed was only the first wave. A second, larger force is inbound." Hale's shoulders stiffened. He didn't blink. "Understood, Admiral. We'll hold the line." Here, the screen blinked out. No time for ceremony. Marcus turned to his crew. "You heard him. Double-check all systems. Restock. Rearm. We're not done." And they moved, because that's what the Vanguard crew did. They didn't complain. They didn't panic. They prepared, because they knew this wasn't about just one battle. This was the beginning of something bigger. Marcus turned his gaze to the star field beyond the glass. Somewhere out there, the next wave was already coming. But this time, the Zorak knew. This time, they wouldn't forget. Space was never silent on the UNSS Vanguard. Even in the vacuum between stars, there was always a pulse, a beat made up of humming engines, soft beeps of navigational pings, whispered commands between bridge officers, and the ever-present rhythm of human determination. Captain Marcus Hale stood rooted at the center of that heartbeat. In front of him, holographic projections lit up the bridge, tracking every movement of the approaching Zorak armada. They were close now. The enemy ships came in a loose formation, an aggressive wedge built for overwhelming attacks. Every vessel bristled with weapon ports, their sleek black hulls reflecting the ambient light of distant stars. There were over 24 of them, attack cruisers, corvettes, and a central battleship pulsing with command signals. By all traditional standards, the Zorak had the advantage. Numbers, energy output, displacement tonnage, redundancy. But Marcus didn't deal in traditional. He dealt in results. And what he saw on that tactical screen wasn't a guaranteed defeat. It was an opportunity. "Final check," he said, voice level but commanding. Lieutenant Ramirez was already ahead of him. All railguns calibrated, torpedo launchers loaded and standing by, point defense systems online, shield matrix at 100%. Marcus turned slightly. "Argus?" The ship's AI answered in its usual calm, measured tone. "All offensive and defensive systems fully functional. Current energy distribution is optimized for initial engagement. Predictive combat simulations indicate a 47% chance of eliminating 60% of enemy forces in the first 6 minutes. depending on evasive patterns and environmental factors. Marcus didn't need better odds. He needed time, and he needed his crew. "Very well," he said. "This ends when we say it does." On cue, the comm screen blinked. "Captain," said Ensign Blake, "incoming transmission from Admiral Krath. He's patched through." The air seemed to thicken. On the screen appeared the face of the enemy. Cold, expressionless scales glinted under artificial lighting. Krath had the sharp, avian-like facial structure common to his species, and his golden armor signified high military status in the Zorak Imperium. "Human vessel," Krath began, his voice tinged with disgust. "This is Admiral Krath of the Zorak Imperium. You are surrounded. You are outgunned. Your resistance is meaningless. Surrender now and your crew will be spared unnecessary suffering." Marcus stood tall, shoulders square. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't flinch. "Admiral Krath," he said, "what you see before you isn't desperation. It's resolve. You think one ship can't make a difference? That's your first mistake. You think we're unprepared? That's your second. This is your only warning. Retreat now or face the consequences." Krath narrowed his eyes, unamused. "Then consequences it shall be." The transmission cut. No more talking. "Enemy fleet advancing," Ramirez reported, now fully immersed in battle mode. "Weapons charging, multiple lock-ons confirmed." "All hands," Marcus announced. "Battle stations." The bridge exploded into coordinated movement. Officers strapped into their chairs. Red alert lights bathed the control panels. The low thrum of weapon capacitors charging echoed through the deck. Outside, space turned into a tactical playground of death. The Zorak opened fire first. A spread of plasma bolts sliced through space. Dozens at once, some the size of freight containers. Others barely larger than a spear tip, but just as deadly. The Vanguard's energy shields flared blue-white, absorbing the worst of it. But the shock still shook the frame. "Shields holding," Ramirez confirmed, 86%, minor surface heating on hull section B2. "Return fire," Marcus said. The Vanguard came alive. Its railguns snapped forward and began to bark, silent in the vacuum, but violent on screen. Projectiles, tiny rods of magnetically accelerated metal, screamed through space at a fraction under light speed. Where they struck, Zorak ships shattered. Hulls split. Engines combusted. Fires erupted from within pressurized corridors. "Target acquired," Argus reported, launching torpedoes. From the Vanguard's underbelly, 4 torpedoes detached in perfect unison. They moved like sharks, silent, precise, inevitable. On the Zorak flagship, countermeasures lit up. Decoys, anti-missile flares, disruptor pulses. None of it mattered. The Vanguard's torpedoes weren't guided by luck. They were guided by logic, learning, and an AI that updated its targeting algorithm every millisecond. They struck home. The flagship's flank was the first to rupture. Then came the cascading systems failures. Power conduits exploding in sequence. Propulsion jets veering off course. Command signals fragmenting. The great ship twisted sideways, bleeding fire and debris. And just like that, the confidence of the Zorak formation collapsed. "Flagship disabled," Ramirez shouted over the noise. "It's breaking up." A cheer went up, but Marcus raised his hand. "Maintain formation," he said. "This isn't over yet." And he was right. The remaining Zorak ships pressed the attack, but they did so disjointedly now. The loss of their command vessel disrupted cohesion. Some ships broke left, others surged forward, unsure who was in charge. "Argus," Marcus said, "prioritize isolated targets. Use predictive vectors." "Calculating optimal fire sequences," the AI replied. "Uploading now." More railgun fire, more torpedoes. The Vanguard became a moving fortress, rotating, accelerating, decelerating, playing cat and mouse with enemies who still hadn't grasped the scale of the threat. But the Zorak weren't fools. They adapted. Several smaller attack ships looped behind the Vanguard, aiming to strike at its engine section. Marcus saw the maneuver too late to intercept conventionally. "Blake," he barked, "deploy countermeasures. Get point defense systems online." Automated turrets hidden along the ship's dorsal spine popped out and swiveled. They locked, fired. Microscopic bursts of energy laced with tungsten flechettes lit up the blackness. The enemy ships disintegrated mid-approach. Rear secure, Blake confirmed. All around, the Vanguard danced through destruction. Fire tore through space. Explosions erupted silently, painting the void with orange and white pulses. One by one, Zorak ships fell. And then, silence. Not the peaceful kind, the aftermath kind. Marcus stood motionless for several seconds. Status? Ramirez exhaled. Shields at 61%. Hull damage superficial. All primary weapons operational. No major casualties. Marcus allowed himself a moment, just one, to breathe. Good work, he said. Patch me through to Earth. Seconds later, Admiral Preston appeared on screen again. His posture was rigid. Report. We held them, sir, Marcus replied. Fleet destroyed. Flagship disabled. Minimal losses on our end. There was a pause. Then Preston leaned forward slightly. You did more than hold them, Captain. You made a statement. And Marcus knew it was true. The Zorak thought they would walk through a paper wall. Instead, they crashed into a monolith. I'll send a full report within the hour, Marcus said. But there's one thing you can add to the headlines. What's that? That one ship was enough. In the aftermath of war, the silence is never peaceful. It's watchful, heavy, the kind of silence that clings to your skin and presses into your bones, whispering, this isn't over. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the heart of the UNSS Vanguard's bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. Debris from the shattered Zorak fleet still floated across the void, glowing embers of wreckage gently drifting against the backdrop of endless stars. The ship had survived, but it hadn't emerged untouched. The hull bore blackened streaks from energy blasts. The crew was exhausted, but the spirit, unbroken. Just moments ago, Earth had responded to their initial report of victory. Cheers had echoed through the corridors. Officers clapped each other on the back. The impossible had been achieved, one ship defeating an entire alien armada. But Marcus had barely allowed himself to exhale when the real message came through. Captain, Ensign Blake had said quietly, incoming transmission from Admiral Preston. The screen blinked to life. Preston's hologram looked different this time. His usual composure was there, but beneath it was something else. Strain, urgency. Captain Hale, Preston said without preamble, we've confirmed intelligence from Deep Space Reconnaissance. That Zorak fleet you just destroyed? It was only the first wave. A second force is mobilizing, larger, heavier, more diverse in ship class. Your orders are to hold your position until reinforcements arrive. Hale's jaw had set instantly. Understood, Admiral. We'll be ready. Now the echo of those words haunted him as he stared out the bridge viewport at the open blackness of space. They had little time. Status report, he said, voice steady but louder than usual, cutting through the low buzz of activity. Lieutenant Ramirez looked up from his terminal. Shields are back to full strength. Weapon systems are reloaded and recalibrated. Engineering has repaired all minor hull breaches. We're operational, sir. Marcus gave a slight nod. Argus, any signs of the second fleet? The ship's AI responded instantly, its voice as calm as ever. Affirmative, Captain. Long-range sensors have detected multiple warp signatures. Distance, approximately 2 light-years. Estimated time to contact, 10 minutes. 10 minutes, not hours, not days. Just long enough to think, but not long enough to rest. Marcus stepped toward the center console. Blake, open a secure channel to Earth. We need to report our status and request immediate reinforcements. Aye, sir, Blake said, fingers flying across the console. Around the bridge, the crew moved like a single body, smooth, practiced, focused. Nobody asked unnecessary questions. Everyone knew what was coming. The first wave had been bad. This one, it would be worse. Once the channel opened, Admiral Preston reappeared, his image flickering faintly. Admiral, Marcus said, we've confirmed warp signatures, multiple large-class vessels approaching. We estimate contact in 10 minutes, requesting additional support. Preston's face hardened. We're mobilizing everything we have, Captain, but it'll take time to reach you. You need to hold the line. Again. Marcus nodded once. Understood. Godspeed, Admiral. The channel closed. No time to debate. No time to hesitate. He turned back to his crew. Everyone, listen up. The next wave will be tougher, but we've already proven what this ship and this crew is capable of. Trust your training. Trust your instincts. Trust each other. We are the tip of the spear. He stepped forward, and we will not break. Around the bridge, the officers answered in unison. Aye, sir. Argus, Marcus said, begin calculating optimal defensive positions. I want us positioned to maximize our firepower and minimize their ability to swarm us. Working, the AI responded. Recommended position uploaded to tactical map. The projection rotated, displaying a small gravitational eddy several thousand kilometers off their current vector, an advantageous location that would limit enemy angles of attack. Helm, take us there, Hale ordered. The Vanguard glided forward with quiet purpose, every thruster firing with precise bursts. There was no panic, only control. 5 minutes left. In that time, the bridge transformed. Officers double-checked power relays, ammunition counts, energy distribution graphs. Engineering reran diagnostics on reactor output, medical prepared emergency protocols. Security crews armed themselves in case of boarding, and Marcus Hale stood among them all, still and composed like the center of a storm. Captain, Ramirez called out, enemy fleet emerging from warp. All stations report, Hale barked. Weapon systems green. Shields fully charged. Point defense online. Combat drones deployed. The main screen flickered, and then the Zorak appeared. They came out of warp in rippling waves of distortion. Their ships were darker, bulkier than before. Some were new classes entirely, long spined carriers flanked by wide-winged destroyers. And then came the monsters. Dreadnoughts so massive they made the previous flagship look like a scout vessel. There were dozens, maybe more. Incoming transmission, Ensign Blake said. Put it up. The visage that appeared was colder than Krath. This Zorak had a silver crest that ran from his forehead to the back of his neck, and deep violet armor adorned with ceremonial markings. I am Fleet Marshal Drogan of the Zorak Imperium, he hissed. Your defiance is noted, but futile. Surrender now, and you may yet live. Marcus stared at him, not flinching, not blinking. Marshal Drogan, he said evenly. Your people said the same thing last time. You saw what happened. He leaned forward slightly. You're not the first wave we've destroyed, but you can be the last. Turn around while you still have the choice. Drogan's face twisted into a sneer. So be it. The transmission ended. All hands, battle stations, Marcus shouted. There was no delay. The ship shifted immediately into combat mode. Warning lights flashed. Vibration returned to the deck as power rerouted to shields and weapons. Crew members gripped their chairs, and the second war began. Zorak ships moved fast. Their formations split into 3 separate wedges, attempting to surround the Vanguard from multiple vectors. Deploy all drones, Hale ordered. Have them patrol flanking corridors. Energy blasts surged from the enemy formation. The first volley hit hard, slamming into the Vanguard shields and dimming lights on the bridge. Shields at 75%, Ramirez called. No structural breaches. Return fire. Target their lead, Dreadnought. The Vanguard answered with a roar. Railguns fired in sequence, shells punching through the void. Torpedoes launched in swarms, guidance systems updated in real time by Argus. The enemy Dreadnought staggered, its shields flaring red, but it stayed upright. They're stronger this time, Ramirez warned. Better armor. Faster coordination. We're smarter, Marcus snapped back. Concentrate all fire on that Dreadnought. Take it down. The Vanguard pressed forward, right into the center of their formation. As plasma blasts streaked past, point defense lasers sliced down incoming missiles. Fighters attempted to flank, but drone squadrons intercepted them mid-approach, spiraling through debris fields with terrifying precision. Still, the enemy pressed hard. Multiple fighters breaking off, heading toward our aft section, Blake warned. Deploy countermeasures, Hale ordered. Activate point defense turrets. Turrets swiveled and opened fire, cutting down the enemy fighters in bright blue flashes. But more were coming. Captain, Ramirez shouted. Enemy reinforcements emerging from warp. Marcus clenched his jaw. This was it. No more stalling. No more dancing. All power to forward shields and weapons, he barked. We're punching through. Lock main cannon on their command ship. The Vanguard surged forward like a battering ram. Its main cannon charged, crackling with violet energy. Argus computed trajectory, distance, shield harmonics. Target locked, Ramirez called. Fire! A brilliant beam of focused energy tore across space, cutting through enemy fire and defenses. It hit. The Zorak command ship convulsed. Shields shattered, hull crumbled, and fire erupted from its core. A shockwave spread through nearby vessels. Direct hit, Ramirez shouted. Command ship destroyed. The Zorak formation hesitated. Some ships fell back. Others turned inward, unsure of the new chain of command. Keep firing, Marcus shouted. Press the advantage. Torpedoes exploded against cruiser hulls. Railgun rounds tore through weakened armor. Missiles tracked fleeing vessels, exploding like firecrackers in the dark. And then, Captain, Blake called out. Incoming transmission. Multiple enemy ships. Requesting terms of surrender. The bridge froze for half a second. Then Marcus stepped forward. Patch them through. The first Zorak face appeared on screen. Bloodied, exhausted, defeated. Human vessel, he said slowly. We surrender. Please, no more. Marcus stared at him, then nodded. Cease all hostilities. Power down your ships. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with force. Do you understand? The alien nodded. Yes, we comply. Marcus turned to his crew. Battle readiness, people. Ramirez, assemble boarding teams. Blake, monitor all transmissions. We do this clean. And just like that, the tide shifted again. The battle was over. But the war, far from it. The UNSS Vanguard had become a legend overnight, but legends don't rest for long. Captain Marcus Hale stood with his arms folded behind his back, staring out into space as the tactical display flared to life with red blips. Enemy vessels, dozens of them. And these weren't the disorganized remnants of a broken fleet. This was the full force of the Zorak Imperium, bearing down on them in terrifying unity. Everything felt heavier. The air, the silence. Even the hum of the ship's systems seemed denser, more strained, like the Vanguard itself knew what was coming. Visuals coming online, Ensign Blake reported, his voice tight with focus. The screen lit up, and the sight drew a sharp breath from the crew. Before them was a swarm of alien warships, far larger and more diverse than the first wave. Jagged dreadnoughts loomed at the center like floating fortresses, flanked by smaller but faster assault ships. Massive carriers moved behind the lines, launching new squadrons of fighters in tight formation. The enemy stretched across the void like a metal tide. No breaks, no cracks in the formation, no weakness to exploit. Only steel, only fire. Captain, Lieutenant Ramirez said, incoming transmission from the Zorak fleet. On screen. The visage of a new Zorak leader filled the display, a cold-eyed commander with rough scales and a silver crest running down his skull. He radiated power, arrogance, and utter certainty. I am High Commander Vac, he said, his tone dripping with contempt. Your defiance is noted, but pointless. You have impressed my subordinates, but now you face me. Surrender, and your species may still retain dignity. Marcus didn't blink. He stepped forward and answered without hesitation. Commander Vac, your kind made the same mistake as the last. You underestimate the very thing that makes humanity different. We don't give up. We adapt. We fight until there's nothing left to give. We will not surrender. Vac sneered, revealing sharp bone-colored teeth. Then you will be extinguished. The transmission cut. Battle stations, Marcus shouted. All hands, prepare to engage. The red lights began flashing again. Klaxons sounded across the bridge and down every corridor of the Vanguard. Officers strapped in. Engineers rerouted power. Gunners prepped their firing solutions. This time they all knew survival wasn't likely. But it was possible. Enemy formation splitting into 3 wings, Ramirez said, fingers dancing across his console. They're going for a pincer maneuver. Argus, Marcus called, give me threat assessments and tactical overlays. The ship's AI responded instantly. Concentration of firepower, strongest on the left flank. carrier-based fighters deploying from the rear. Suggest redirecting 20% of shield capacity to aft section and deploying drones in spread pattern to prevent encirclement. Make it so, Marcus ordered, and prepare torpedo batteries. I want to hit them hard before they close the gap. Within seconds, Vanguard's weapon systems came to life. Railguns spun into position. Missile pods opened their hatches. The AI-controlled drone fleet spread outward like a cloud of mechanical hornets, each programmed for interception and counterattack. Then came the first strike. The Zorak dreadnoughts opened fire in unison. Plasma bolts and beam weapons streaked across space, converging on the Vanguard in a relentless barrage. The shields flared bright, then dimmed under the onslaught. Shields down to 83%, Ramirez called out. Forward hull absorbing minor concussive impact. Return fire, Marcus commanded, all batteries. The Vanguard answered like a beast unleashed. Railgun slugs fired at hypersonic speed, slicing through enemy formations. Explosions rippled across the enemy's left flank. Torpedoes followed, guided by predictive targeting algorithms that danced around countermeasures and punched directly into hulls. Direct hits on 3 cruisers, Blake reported. 2 confirmed kills. But it wasn't enough. The Zorak fleet kept coming. Fighters incoming, Ramirez shouted. 30+, moving fast, attempting rear flanking maneuver. Deploy countermeasures. Activate point defense. Automated turrets sprang into motion. They tracked and fired in every direction, catching enemy fighters in mid-dive. Explosions scattered through the rear corridor of space. Still, a few Zorak ships made it through, blasting at the Vanguard's engine cluster. Minor damage to rear thrusters, engineering reported. Containment fields holding. Marcus gritted his teeth. We're not pulling back. We're pushing forward. Focus all fire on their lead dreadnought. If we break the center, we break their lines. Natraiwan, the Vanguard surged ahead, angling itself toward the enemy's core formation. Main cannon charging, Ramirez confirmed. Target locked. Fire! A searing lance of energy tore through the dark, straight and true. It struck the enemy dreadnought amidships, causing a chain reaction that rocked the entire Zorak line. Debris exploded outward. Shields faltered. For a moment, the enemy blinked. That moment was all Marcus needed. All hands brace for impact. We're going through. The Vanguard plowed forward, engines screaming. It dove through the heart of the enemy formation, guns blazing in every direction. Railguns tore apart pursuing ships. Torpedoes found their marks in the chaos. Fighters scattered. They didn't expect a charge, Ramirez muttered, astonished. They expected fear, Marcus said coldly. We gave them fire, but boldness came at a price. Shields down to 42%, Ramirez called. Hull breaches in sections C and E. Damage control dispatched. Casualty reports incoming. Keep us in the fight, Marcus snapped. Argus, reroute power to shields. Maintain weapon priority. Acknowledged, the AI replied calmly. Power rerouted. Suggest evasive pattern Delta 7 to reduce incoming projectile concentration. Execute. The ship twisted with unnatural grace, dodging a spread of incoming torpedoes by inches. A secondary Zorak destroyer tried to match the maneuver and failed, colliding with debris and vanishing in an inferno. We're bleeding them, Blake said, but they're not stopping. They will, Marcus replied, once they realize we're not afraid to die if it means they lose. The bridge trembled again under enemy fire. Captain, Ramirez called, enemy command ship locking onto us. They're charging a primary beam weapon. Charge our main cannon. Target their bridge directly. But sir, no second guesses. Do it. The Vanguard stabilized, engines roaring. Argus calculated angles and shield weakness in real time. Firing solution locked, Ramirez said. Main cannon ready. Fire! The beam unleashed from the Vanguard was brighter than any star in sight. It pierced the Zorak command ship's bow, slicing through its bridge and erupting out the other side. A moment later, the entire ship detonated in a blinding wave of light. The Zorak fleet faltered again. This time it was real. Their command hierarchy was gone. Again. The Vanguard had just killed their leader mid-battle. Confusion took hold. Some ships held their ground. Others began to break formation. Now, Marcus shouted. Focus fire on isolated targets. Hit everything that's turning. The crew obeyed with furious momentum. The Vanguard turned into a reaper, cleaving through ship after ship with railgun bursts and torpedo blasts. Fighters attempted a final push, only to be torn apart by drones and laser defense grids. Minutes passed like hours. "Captain!" Blake yelled. "Enemy ships requesting surrender." The bridge fell silent. Marcus inhaled slowly, letting the moment settle. Then, patch them through. One by one, Zorak commanders appeared, bloodied, weary, defeated. "We yield," the first said. "You win. We request terms." Marcus nodded once. "Cease fire. Power down all systems. Prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be fatal." Each alien agreed. Marcus turned to his crew. "Maintain alert. Ramirez, mobilize boarding teams. Blake, monitor everything. They may still try something desperate." And with that, the battle ended. But Marcus knew what everyone was feeling. There was no cheering, no relief, just silence. Because war didn't let you breathe. Not yet. The battlefield had gone quiet. Where minutes before, space had raged with fire and fury. Now only drifting wreckage and distant sparks remained. The second wave of Zorak invaders was in full retreat. Those that survived. Many had fled. Some had surrendered. Others floated lifeless, reduced to twisted hulls and shattered command cores. The vanguard hovered among the remains like a silent judge, battle-scarred yet unbroken. On the bridge, Captain Marcus Hale stood surrounded by the low murmurs of post-combat protocol. No one celebrated. Not yet. Victory had come, but every soul aboard knew the weight of what it had cost and what might still follow. "Captain," Ensign Blake called, breaking the stillness. "Incoming transmissions. Multiple Zorak vessels are requesting terms of surrender." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Patch them through." The central display flickered. A Zorak captain appeared, his face a picture of weariness and humiliation. Behind him, the darkened interior of a battle-damaged bridge buzzed with emergency lighting. His crew, many injured or bound in makeshift splints, waited behind him in silence. "I am Captain Zorak," the alien said in halting standard. "We acknowledge defeat. We request mercy and formal surrender." Marcus met his gaze with steady resolve. "Captain Zorak, you'll be granted mercy under one condition: complete cooperation, power down all weapons, lower shields, prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be treated as hostile." The Zorak captain hesitated, then gave a slight nod. "Understood, Captain Hale. We will comply." The channel closed. Marcus turned to Ramirez. "Coordinate boarding teams. Secure all surrendered vessels. Prioritize command centers, data cores, and prisoner processing." "Understood." "Blake, monitor all enemy communications and power signatures. If anyone twitches funny, I want to know before they breathe." The Vanguard's bridge sprang back to motion. Elite boarding squads began final checks. Across the ship's hangar bay, armored Marines armed with pulse rifles and mag-seal boots loaded into shuttles. Each team was equipped with portable jammers, translation kits, and neural tethers. Standard procedure for hostile or unknown tech environments. Minutes later, dozens of human boarding craft launched from the Vanguard's midsection, cutting across the black like steel insects. They approached the surrendered Zorak ships cautiously, ready for betrayal but prepared for victory. Inside the first cruiser, the Marines encountered minimal resistance. The Zorak troops were shaken, wounded, their morale shattered by the loss of 2 command fleets. Doors were unlocked, weapons were dropped. A few crew members collapsed outright, not from wounds, but from the sheer weight of defeat. "Area clear," came the first report. "We have control of the command deck. Enemy officers detained." "Copy that," Ramirez replied from the bridge. "Proceed to data recovery protocols." Across 3 Zorak vessels, this pattern repeated. Infiltration, securing vital control points, interrogation, data acquisition, all with clinical precision and overwhelming authority. By hour 3, the situation was stable. Back on the Vanguard, Marcus stood in front of the holographic table in the command center, reviewing the incoming feed from boarding squads. Ramirez entered, holding a data pad, his face grim. "What have we got?" "Sir, it's worse than we thought." Ramirez handed over the data pad. They weren't just regrouping after the first wave. The second wave was meant to probe our defenses. Marcus narrowed his eyes. You're telling me this was a test run? Ramirez nodded. According to decrypted transmissions and confirmed statements from several Zorak officers, their high command is planning a full-scale counteroffensive, multi-front assaults across several sectors. Not just here, but Mars, Europa, the lunar belt, every strategic node in the outer colonies. Marcus swiped through the decoded files. Some were tactical maps. Others were encrypted command directives marked with Zorak glyphs. Every document pointed to the same thing: a planned decapitation strike on human infrastructure. They're targeting Earth's command lattice, Ramirez continued. If they pull this off, we lose all coordination across the colonies. Civilian outposts would be left defenseless. It's comprehensive and brutal. Marcus exhaled through his nose, jaw tight. How soon? Fleet assembly already underway. Estimated launch, less than 72 hours. Marcus stared at the dark void outside the bridge window. For a moment, there was only silence. Then he turned back. Blake, open a Priority 1 channel to Earth, now. The communications tech worked quickly. A few moments later, the familiar face of Admiral Preston reappeared, flanked this time by 2 aides and a secondary flag officer. The look on Preston's face told Marcus he already knew the general shape of what he was about to hear. Captain Hale. Admiral, we've secured several Zorak vessels. Our teams have extracted encrypted intel and interrogated multiple officers. They're preparing a larger offensive, multi-pronged. We believe it's targeting our entire command grid across the system. Preston was quiet for a second. Then, do you have confirmation? Marcus turned the data pad to the console camera. A series of decoded messages and visual schematics filled the Admiral's screen. Preston leaned in, scanning quickly. Ramirez confirmed the timestamp and encryption tier on those messages, Preston ordered. Confirmed, Admiral. These weren't legacy orders. They were issued shortly before the second wave launched. Preston's face darkened. Captain, this changes everything. We were preparing reinforcements, but if what you're showing me is accurate, we're facing a war on multiple fronts. Earth's inner defenses won't hold without restructuring. I need your recommendation. Marcus didn't hesitate. We fortify the outer perimeter. The Vanguard stays here and acts as the anchor. But we need backup. Now. You can't wait until the Zorak hit Mars to start reacting. Strike preemptively. Lock down all military gates. Consolidate our long-range artillery at Titan and reroute supplies from the Venus belt to reinforce Luna Command. Preston nodded slowly. Send all decrypted intel to High Command. I'll mobilize the Defense Council within the hour. The channel ended. Ramirez stepped closer. That was bold. It had to be, Marcus replied, because now we're not just fighting to survive. We're fighting to keep Earth connected. The captain looked toward the stars. Out there, beyond the wreckage, beyond the surrendering ships, was a force gathering, learning, adapting. The Zorak weren't finished, but neither was he. Hours passed. Inside the Vanguard, the bridge had entered a low hum of continuous operation. Systems cycled, boarding teams returned. Marines carried armfuls of data cores. AI technicians worked alongside Argus to decrypt alien systems and feed updates to High Command. Across the secured enemy ships, small detachments of Vanguard engineers had begun retrofitting systems, extracting anything salvageable and scanning for traps. One of the cruisers had been rigged to self-destruct, detected just in time by one of Argus's anomaly subroutines. Marcus took the news without flinching. He had expected deception. It was a matter of when, not if. Captain, Ramirez said, Admiral Preston has confirmed receipt of our intel. Earth is mobilizing. Fleet strength estimates are being reallocated. They're sending 2 cruisers and a support carrier to reinforce our position. ETA, 16 hours. Long time to wait, Marcus muttered, especially with what's out there. But he also knew they weren't helpless. The Vanguard had become more than a warship. It was a symbol, proof that humanity didn't just survive. It endured. It outthought. It struck harder when the odds were impossible. Continue securing enemy ships, he ordered. Double-check every system. Strip them down if needed. Any trap, any ambush, shut it down before it starts. Understood. As Ramirez moved to carry out the command, Marcus returned to the center of the bridge. The stars stared back at him. They were beautiful, cold, indifferent, but so was steel, and the Vanguard had enough of it to stand against an empire. The stars didn't twinkle in space. They shimmered, cold and unwavering. Silent witnesses to the final gambit of two civilizations. The UNSS Vanguard hung alone in the darkness once again, suspended between the wreckage of past battles and the looming shadow of what was coming next. It was scarred but not broken, quiet but alert, like a veteran warrior standing tall after 1,000 battles, refusing to kneel for the next. Captain Marcus Hale stood motionless at the heart of the bridge. His eyes didn't blink. He'd been here before, watching, waiting. But this time felt different, because this time they all knew. The next wave would either break them or break the enemy forever. "Argus," Marcus said, voice calm but tense. "Status report." The AI's voice remained eerily composed. Sensors confirm multiple warp signatures, bearing 220, Mark 45. Estimated arrival, 2 minutes. Total vessel count, unknown. Estimated fleet mass suggests over 60 ships, including multiple dreadnought-class warforms. Defensive systems? All weapons online. Shield capacitors at 100%. Drones deployed and armed. Hull integrity at 92%. Tactical readiness? Optimal. Marcus nodded once, slow and deliberate. All hands to battle stations. The bridge didn't panic. It didn't even flinch. These men and women had faced annihilation twice already. They weren't just trained anymore. They were tempered. As the crew moved into position, Marcus turned to Blake. "Open a channel to Earth. Let's get Admiral Preston on the line." A few seconds passed. Then the screen flickered to life. Preston's face appeared, stern as always, but with something different this time. Not just tension, not just focus. It was trust. "Hale," the Admiral said. "Our fleet is en route. Final approach within minutes. We're bringing in 2 cruisers, 1 Titan-class carrier, and orbital artillery. Hold your position until we arrive. Then we finish this." "We'll be here," Marcus said. "We always are." The channel cut, just in time. "Captain," Ramirez said, "they're here." The main display lit up with fresh enemy signatures. The final Zorak wave had arrived, and it was unlike anything they'd seen before. Vast, coordinated, bristling with terrifying power. Dreadnoughts the size of cities. Ships shaped like black wings. Fighters deployed in phalanxes like swarms of mechanical wasps. And at the center, a flagship larger than any ship in known space. Incoming transmission. Marcus straightened his uniform. On screen, the image that appeared was nearly mythic. Fleet Marshal Drogan himself, final commander of the Zorak Imperium's war effort. His scaled face was ancient, sharp, scarred. He didn't waste time. "Human vessel," Drogan said with icy authority. "You have defied extinction. Impressive. But this ends now. I offer you final mercy. Surrender, and Earth will be spared swift destruction." Marcus didn't look away. He leaned forward, unshaken. "Marshal Drogan," he said, "you mistake mercy for fear, and you mistake survival for surrender." He let the words hang. "You want our answer?" Marcus continued. "Here it is. Come and get us." Drogan's eyes narrowed. "So be it." The transmission ended, and the stars lit up with war. The first wave of enemy fire struck like a solar flare. Massive energy beams carved toward the Vanguard, illuminating the bridge in strobing flashes of orange and violet. The ship shuddered under the impact, its shields flaring white-hot. "Shields down to 87%, Ramirez shouted, reinforcing forward layers. "Return fire," Marcus barked. The Vanguard's railguns exploded to life, hurling tungsten slugs at hypersonic speeds. Torpedoes launched from side pods, maneuvering through clouds of incoming fire. Drones spun in coordinated formations, intercepting missile salvos and enemy fighters. And still, the Zorak kept coming. "Enemy dreadnought attempting to flank from port side," Blake yelled. "They're targeting our reactor core." "Argus," Marcus snapped. "Redirect point defense. Eliminate that flank." "Executing countermeasure alignment," the AI replied. "Deploying suppression barrage." Turrets rotated. Plasma charges lanced through space. The flanking dreadnought took the hits. Shielding crackled, then collapsed. The Vanguard's secondary cannon fired once, cleaving through the hull. The enemy ship folded in on itself and vanished in a bloom of flame. "Good hit," Ramirez said, "but we've got more incoming. They're overwhelming us." The bridge shook again. Lights dimmed for half a second. Then hope arrived. "Captain," Blake shouted, "friendly warp signatures detected. Reinforcements incoming." The tactical screen flared green. Admiral Preston's fleet arrived like an answer to prayer. 2 heavy cruisers came in hot, weapons blazing, immediately drawing fire from the right flank. The Titan-class carrier, UNSS Resolute, hovered behind them, launching wave after wave of fighter squadrons and automated drones. "Put Preston on screen," Marcus ordered. "Already with you, Captain," the Admiral's voice said. His face flickered onto the monitor. "Looks like you held the line again." "Long enough," Marcus replied. "Let's finish this." With fresh firepower and a united front, humanity pushed back. Preston's fleet targeted the outer Zorak wings. Missiles and kinetic weapons rained down in overlapping waves. Vanguard moved to the center, leading the charge straight at Drogon's flagship. "Target their command ship," Marcus said. "Now!" "All weapons focused," Ramirez said. "Main cannon charging." "Firing trajectory locked," Argus added. "Fire!" The Vanguard unleashed its final strike. The main cannon erupted in a flash of light. The beam traveled across space in a single breath, piercing the Zorak flagship through its center. It didn't explode. It imploded. A chain reaction rippled through the ship's core. Explosions bloomed across the surface like dying stars. The flagship buckled, cracked in half, and was swallowed by its own disintegrating reactor. The battle stalled. Then it broke. Zorak ships faltered. Their formations collapsed. Fighters disengaged. One by one, enemy vessels began powering down and transmitting surrender codes. "All enemy ships disengaging," Blake said, almost in disbelief. "We've done it." The bridge was silent. Then slowly, cheers erupted. But Marcus didn't smile. Not yet. He walked slowly to the viewport, watching enemy ships drift in defeat. Ramirez stepped beside him. "Sir, is it over?" Marcus looked out at the black sea of stars littered with debris and silence. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." Hours later, the battlefield was secure. Zorak survivors were being processed and detained. Human engineers were cataloging enemy technology. Emergency crews combed through the wreckage for anything that could be saved or learned. In the Vanguard's command center, Marcus stood with Admiral Preston, reviewing the full scope of the war they had just ended. "You saved Earth," Preston said simply. "You gave the galaxy something it's never seen before." Marcus nodded slowly. "We gave them a reason to think twice." The Admiral looked down at the deck, then back at him. "You think they'll come again?" Marcus's voice was low, firm. "Maybe, but next time, we won't be alone." Later that night, Marcus sat alone in his quarters. A datapad rested in his lap, glowing faintly. He wasn't reading battle reports. Not now. He was writing a message to his crew, to the Marines who fought on broken hulls, to the engineers who worked through tremors and fire, to the pilots who launched despite impossible odds, to the officers who stood beside him when every logical outcome pointed to death. He wrote one line: "You proved that one ship, one crew, can make a difference. And in doing so, you reminded the galaxy, and maybe even ourselves, that courage is not the absence of fear. It's choosing to act anyway." He paused. Then he added, "We were the spark. Let us never forget why we lit the fire." Reflection. What does a story like this really mean? It isn't just about ships or aliens or victory. It's about humanity, the messy, passionate, unyielding species that refuses to lie down. It's about resilience in the face of impossible odds, leadership in the midst of chaos, and the truth that sometimes the smallest force, guided by belief and principle, can hold back a tidal wave. The Vanguard wasn't a miracle. It was people, unified by conviction. In our own world, we might not face alien armadas, but we do face giants: poverty, injustice, corruption, conflict. And sometimes we feel like a single ship in the dark. But maybe that's enough, because courage, like light, doesn't need permission to shine.